let's say it this way. If they don't negotiate with you, how much damage can you do to the McCain campaign?
Well, it isn't, we're not looking at this in terms of doing damage just to the McCain campaign. We hope to do damage to both the McCain campaign and the Obama campaign. We hope to make this a truly competitive three-way race to present a real choice to the American people so that at least this cycle and hopefully in future election cycles, the American electorate doesn't feel themselves bound to go in and simply vote for the lesser of two evils, which is the way many people look at going into the polling booth and voting for the Republican or the Democrat.
One of the questions I was asking people last week, every interview I got, is what they thought about civil liberties. The current administration obviously has some problems with regards to civil liberties, and I got some surprisingly weak answers from the Democrats. What do you think about, how big of an issue is civil liberties in this election? And do you think either of the two major parties presents a real option for that?
The two major parties are two sides of the same coin. Neither of them really care so much about civil liberties anymore. The Democrats talk more about it, but when push comes to shove, as we saw on the recent expansion of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which now gives the federal government the power to listen into virtually any electronic communication of anybody in this country without ever going to a court, the Democrats got right in line behind the Bush administration. Neither of them care about civil liberties anymore. It's all been trumped by the fear that this administration has engendered over a terrorist attack.
Congressman Barr, you've changed a lot, actually, in the last 10 years since I've known you. Can you sort of describe that change and what got you to the place as you are now?
I've always had a deep distrust of the federal government, going back to, for example, during my days in the Congress when I was able to lead the effort to scale back the original anti-terrorism legislation that was proposed by the Republicans with the support of the Clinton administration after the Oklahoma City bombing. We were successful getting that scaled back. We were unsuccessful in getting it scaled back a few years later when all of those provisions and more were put into the USA Patriot Act. But what really has made the difference for me, Ellen, is the fact that post 9/11, the government, particularly under the Bush administration, has made a quantum leap in terms of expanding the notion of executive branch power that is unaccountable to, unanswerable to either the courts or the Congress. Basically, in other words, that a president, once he or she dons the hat of the commander-in-chief, can do whatever they want to, and their actions are not reviewable by the courts or the Congress in their view. This is extremely dangerous and indicates to me that we've entered an entire new, brave new world. And it has, in fact, caused me to go back and look very, very carefully at a number of areas that I was willing to accept government intrusion in the past. We can no longer...
Marijuana was one of them.
Exactly. And no longer can we afford, in my view, to allow the government to simply involve itself in these other areas because we simply have no privacy, virtually no individual freedom left. And we have to not only protect what little we have, but start moving back the intrusions.
As you mentioned, a lot of the intrusions or invasions of people's privacy have been at least condoned by Congress. As president, how would you try to push that back, or as it's Congress giving up the power, would you then ask them to revise that, or would you just not exercise the power they've given the presidency, or how would you do that?
Very good question, and actually I would do both. There is a great deal that a president can do in terms of setting priorities within his administration, within the Department of Justice, for example. And I would make very, very clear as president that we will not be using the power that the Congress granted and that this administration sought to surveil American citizens without any good reason at all, other than the fact that they might be communicating with somebody that the government believes is overseas. That's all it takes now to trigger government surveillance. But I would also make very clear to the American people and to the new Attorney General that the Attorney General's job is not to find ways for President Barr to circumvent the law, which is the way the current Department of Justice has been used by the Bush administration, but their job is to protect the Constitution. Also, at the same time, I would go to the Congress and propose legislation, for example, to scale back many of the provisions in the USA Patriot Act and to undo the recent expansion in the amendments to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act.
What do you think about some of the private lawsuits going on against phone companies, against the government about the wiretapping and things like that?
This is very problematic because the recent Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act expansion amendments provided retroactive immunity for those companies, and it also provided prospective immunity. And this is perhaps the most troubling and questionable aspect of why Senator Obama voted for that legislation, because he made some very good statements prior to his vote for that legislation, indicating that he did not support giving the telecommunications companies either retroactive or prospective immunity for those sorts of acts.
What would you do as president around our foreign policy?
We would put the word defense back into national defense policy. Now, I'm not an isolationist, and the Libertarian Party is not an isolationist party. We are a party that believes in a very strong defense and a very strong, responsive military that is technologically advanced. But that does not mean that we need to maintain tens of thousands of U.S. troops in countries that are more than capable of defending themselves. We would bring them home. It means that we would not be occupying foreign lands such as Iraq and bring those troops home and remove the economic security blanket that is also propping up the government in Iraq. We would use the power of the U.S. military to go after those who do us harm or who are imminently poised to do us harm, and we would not allow artificial political restraints to stop us. But I do not believe in, and our party does not believe in, intervening and occupying foreign nations.
Gay marriage. Where's the Libertarian Party on that?
Leave that up to the states.
Leave it up to the states.
Absolutely.
Let me just, before I'm going to ask you my last question while Jay's thinking of something, what was your very first job you ever had, Congressman Barr?
The very first job, I was selling swimming pools for the summer between my high school and first college year.
What did you do in that job? To describe some of the details if you can.
Well, it was in Long Island, New York. We were living there after I graduated from high school, and I worked for a company that sold above-ground swimming pools. So basically, my job was to load these heavy pools and liners into people's cars. I mean, it was a very exciting job. What can I say?
What skills did you learn from that first job that went into being a congressman and a presidential candidate?
That you have to be somewhere on time, that you have to do what you promised to do, or you're not going to get paid for it.
That's a good one. What else would you like to tell the American people?
That they can go to our website, bobbarr2008.com, and find out all sorts of great things, not just about Bob Barr and my platform, but the Libertarian Party as well.
Congressman and presidential candidate Barr, I hope you get to be included in the presidential debates.
Well, it's a very important part of our agenda. It's very difficult because the two major parties make it almost impossible for a third party to really participate. But we are polling at 6% nationally right now. We have to be polling at 15% in order to participate in the debates. We obviously have our work cut out for us. But regardless of whether we do or do not participate in the debates, we're going to continue to bring our message of a new voice, a real option, and freedom to the American people.
Thank you.
Thank you all.